Have you ever completely misunderstood someone's life purpose, only to realize their true greatness when it was, well, when it was already too late?
Oh, yeah, that's a heavy question.
It is a heavy question, right?
Yeah.
But it is exactly the tension we are exploring today. And before we get fully immersed, if you're joining us right now on the Simplified Summary YouTube channel, I want to humbly ask you to please hit that subscribe button, drop a like on this video, and share your valuable comments down below.
Yes, please do.
Because your support is exactly what makes these deep dives possible, and we genuinely love reading your thoughts.
It absolutely fuels the work we do. And honestly, the narrative we are analyzing today is going to give you a tremendous amount to unpack and debate in those comments.
Oh, no doubt about it. So today our mission is a comprehensive deep dive into an incredibly poignant story titled Mrityuke Pashchat, which translates to After Death.
Right.
We are pulling this from the classic Mansarovar collection, specifically part 6 of our source material, written by the legendary Munshi Premchand.
An absolute master of storytelling.
Truly. And our goal is to extract the core psychological and, I guess, philosophical insights from this narrative about the clash between material wealth and moral legacy. But to really grasp the stakes here, we need a little context.
We do. So for those who might not be familiar, Munshi Premchand is often considered the Charles Dickens of India.
That's a great comparison.
Yeah, his work is famous for capturing the gritty, unglamorous realities of the working class and the complex social dynamics of his era. And this specific story focuses on a husband and wife who are living under the same roof, but they're basically existing in completely incompatible realities.
It's two different planets.
Exactly. They are divided by fundamentally different definitions of what it means to survive and what it means to succeed. So as we navigate their collision course, I invite you, the listener, to reflect on your own metrics. Like, how do you measure the value of the people closest to you? Is it by the comfort they provide or, the legacy they build?
That brings us right to the central conflict. Let's look at the husband, Ishwar Chandra. He is our fierce idealist. He actually achieved what most people in his society were just desperate for. He was a highly lucrative, successful lawyer.
Which was huge back then.
Massive. In the socioeconomic reality of India at that time, being a lawyer wasn't just a job. It was the ultimate status symbol. It was a ticket to the elite. But Ishwar Chandra abandons it.
Just walks away.
He just walks away. He looks around at the legal profession and is utterly disgusted by the deceit. He feels that the entire system is built on making money off the misery, manipulation, and exploitation of vulnerable people.
Yeah, he just couldn't stomach it anymore.
Right. So he leaves the wealth to run a vernacular journal called Gaurav, which translates to pride or dignity. He wants to use his voice to fight for the downtrodden.
And then, on the exact opposite side of this philosophical spectrum, you have his wife, Manki.
Oh, boy.
Manki comes from a wealthy family. She was raised with a very specific, elevated standard of living, and she deeply values prestige, social standing, and above all, financial security.
I mean, who wouldn't, right?
So true. So when she looks at Ishwar Chandra's pivot, she doesn't see some noble crusade for justice. She sees a foolish, reckless disaster that is basically threatening her family's survival.
And she is brutally honest about it, too. Like, the specific details from the text really highlight her absolute disdain for his choice. She openly mocks his publishing efforts.
Oh, she doesn't hold back at all.
Not even a little. She literally compares editing a paper to begging. She points out the absurdity of his path by telling him that people travel all the way across the world to England to study to become doctors or engineers so they can secure a comfortable life. But nobody studies editing just to sit in a room and starve.
She uses a striking, vivid analogy in the source text that just perfectly encapsulates her worldview. Manki tells her husband that a lawyer's income is like a flowing mountain spring.
Okay, a mountain spring.
Right. It is constant, it is reliable, and it brings life and abundance to everything around it. But a journal's income, she compares that to a dry, seasonal stream. You might get a tiny trickle of water during a brief, chaotic storm, but then it instantly reverts to dry, barren dust.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if we look at this without the romantic lens of, the starving artist, I find myself heavily siding with Manki here.
Really? You're Team Manki on this one.
Well, let's be real about the situation. This isn't just a disagreement over a weekend hobby. Ishwar Chandra essentially took an axe to their safety net. Think about it in today's terms. It is the equivalent of someone quitting a stable, high-paying corporate job where they provide healthcare and security for their family, all to start a wildly unprofitable niche passion project.
A blog with 0 subscribers, basically.
Exactly. They plunge their entire household into financial anxiety. From a purely pragmatic standpoint, the partner who is suddenly losing sleep over how to pay the bills has every right to be angry, don't they?
I mean, the anxiety is completely valid.
Right, so you have to ask, is Ishwar Chandra actually a hero? Or is he just a deeply stubborn man forcing his family to underwrite his own ego?
That is the exact gray area Premchand wants you to sit in. What's fascinating here is that the text doesn't paint Manki as a cartoon villain for having those fears. Her practical concerns are entirely valid.
Thank you, yes.
But this is where the narrative shifts from a standard marital dispute over a budget into a profound ethical dilemma. Ishwar Chandra firmly believes that accumulating wealth and living comfortably isn't the sole purpose of a human life, especially not when that comfort is funded by a corrupt system.
So he's looking at the bigger moral picture.
Exactly. He feels a supreme moral obligation to the truth. Manki, however, operates on the belief that education and capability are tools meant to yield tangible worldly comfort. It forces a very uncomfortable question. Does a life of genuine public service inherently require sacrificing your own family's comfort?
Man, that's a tough one.
And if so, do you have the right to make them pay that price?
That is an incredibly precarious tightrope he is walking. And because Manki is so thoroughly convinced that his path is just utter delusion, the tension in the house metastasizes. It stops being just about his career and turns into a battleground for the next generation. Which brings us to their son.
Precisely. The ideological war escalates, and their son, Krishna Chandra, becomes the ultimate prize.
The stakes get incredibly high here. So Ishwar Chandra is pouring his literal life force into this journal. He has no staff, no funding.
Just running on fumes.
Running on pure fumes. He is working alone, late into the night, coughing, exhausted, single-handedly trying to keep Gaurav alive. You can see the severe physical toll this isolation is taking on him. Meanwhile, Krishna Chandra has just graduated with his MA.
Which was a massive achievement.
Huge. In that era, an MA is a golden ticket. Ishwar Chandra desperately wants his son to join the paper, to take up the mantle of this righteous fight and help shoulder the burden.
But Manki steps in with fierce, immovable opposition. She absolutely refuses to let this happen.
I mean, she's probably terrified of seeing her son end up like her husband.
Oh, without a doubt. In the text, she states she will not let her son drown in this unprofitable work. She insists, wielding all her authority as a mother, that Krishna Chandra must become a lawyer to make money.
She wants the mountain spring back.
Exactly. She declares very plainly that she wants to actually enjoy life, not live in a state of constant deprivation and ideological martyrdom. She wants that security back.
So Ishwar Chandra is completely marooned. He has no help from his son and active daily resistance from his wife. He's forced to just keep grinding.
This is so sad.
It really is. And within 9 months of this intense, household-fracturing argument about their son's future, Ishwar Chandra dies.
Wow. 9 months.
Yeah, his body just gives out. But the crucial detail here is that he dies remaining fiercely true to his principles. He faced official wrath from the authorities he criticized, he faced crushing poverty, and he faced the contempt of his own wife. But he never compromised his soul.
It is a devastating end to his physical life. And it highlights a deeply tragic psychological reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because the irony of his life is just staggering. This is a man who spent every waking hour using his voice to fight for justice for thousands of complete strangers.
Yeah, the working class.
Right. He advocated for the working class, for people who had no power. Yet, the one person he could not advocate for, the one person he couldn't get to understand his mission, was his own wife.
That is the invisible toll the story asks us to examine. Ishwar Chandra's refusal to abandon his ideals cost him his life, yes, but the exhaustion was compounded by his isolation.
The loneliness must have been unbearable.
It's one thing to fight the world, you expect the world to push back. It is an entirely different, far more lethal level of exhaustion to fight the world and then come home and fight the people who are supposed to be in your corner.
You have no safe haven.
Right. Premchand is showing us how lethal it can be when two people living under the same roof have completely incompatible definitions of survival.
So, following his father's death, the son, Krishna Chandra, obeys his mother. He follows the money. He becomes a lawyer.
The golden ticket pays off.
Exactly. And Manki finally gets what she always wanted. The financial drought is over. She gets the flowing mountain spring. She gets the security, the social prestige, and the tangible comfort she craved.
But that very comfort is what sets the stage for a massive structural collapse of her entire worldview.
Yes. We jump forward a year in the narrative. Manki has been living this comfortable, wealthy life, and the mechanism of her eventual realization is a masterclass in psychological storytelling, specifically regarding how human beings process validation.
It really is brilliant.
So picture this scene, because the sensory contrast is amazing. It's a year later. Manki has just finished bathing in the Holy Ganga, a ritual of purification. She is returning home in a private, horse-drawn carriage.
Very fancy.
Oh, very luxury. This carriage is a luxury directly funded by her son's new, highly lucrative legal wealth. She is sitting there, insulated from the outside world, probably feeling incredibly vindicated in her life choices. Like her pragmatism won.
She was right all along in her mind.
Exactly. But suddenly, her luxury carriage is forced to stop because the streets are completely choked by a massive grand procession.
The sources paint a very vivid, overwhelming picture of this moment. Manki looks out and sees bands playing music. There is cavalry. There are hundreds of carriages trailing behind. It's a spectacle of immense scale.
Like a royal parade.
Basically, yeah. And at the very center of this massive crowd is a beautifully decorated chariot. On top of this chariot is a grand, newly carved statue. When Manki gets a closer look at the face carved in the stone, she realizes with an absolute shock that the statue is of her late husband, Ishwar Chandra.
The psychological whiplash of that moment is unbelievable. I keep trying to put myself in her shoes.
How would you even process that?
I don't think you can at first. It is like seeing your local community pool their meager resources to build a massive marble monument in the town square to someone you lived with and thought was just an eccentric, annoying, irresponsible dreamer.
Right, the guy who ruined your finances.
Yes. You spent years telling this person they were wasting their life, and suddenly you see thousands of people worshiping their memory. The cold stone statue is earning immense reverence, while the living, breathing man was rejected and mocked in his own home. Why does this break her so completely? She knew what he did for a living. Why does seeing the statue change everything?
It breaks her because of how human psychology processes social proof and market valuation. Think of it like a painting. To the artist's spouse, who watches them make a mess in the living room every day, the painting is just dirty canvas and expensive wasted paint.
Right, just a nuisance.
Exactly. But when that same painting is hung in an auction house and a crowd of strangers starts bidding millions of dollars for it, the spouse suddenly realizes they were living with a masterpiece. Manki needed the auction house, the grand procession, to realize the value of her husband.
Wow. We need the crowd to applaud before we realize we should have been clapping the whole time.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really says something uncomfortable about human nature, doesn't it? We rely so much on external validation, and the mechanism of her guilt goes even deeper.
How so?
Well, she is watching this massive crowd, and she realizes it was funded entirely by the working class people Ishwar Chandra fought for. These are the people she looked down upon.
Oh, wow.
She, an educated, wealthy woman, was totally blind to a nobility that the poorest people in society could clearly see. Her internal monologue in that carriage is devastating. She realizes in a flash of agonizing clarity that her husband was a genuine hero, and worse, she realizes she was the thorn in his path.
The thorn, it's such a visceral word.
It really is. She recognizes that if she had supported him, if she hadn't actively fought against his life's work, he could have achieved even greater heights. The isolation she forced on him might be the very reason he is dead.
So Manki is sitting in this luxury carriage, and suddenly the wealth feels entirely different. She realizes that all this newfound reverence for her husband's integrity makes the money she forced her son to chase feel completely hollow.
It's all tainted now.
Yeah. The mountain spring of cash is flowing, but the water suddenly tastes like ash. It triggers a radical, instantaneous rewiring of her moral compass.
She goes home a completely transformed woman. The pragmatist has been shattered, and she is now desperately seeking redemption.
And the resolution of this story doesn't just tie up loose ends, it flips the entire premise on its head. Manki walks into her home, fresh from seeing this monumental testament to her husband's integrity, and she immediately confronts her son.
She wastes no time.
None at all. She questions Krishna Chandra about the reality of his legal practice.
And Krishna Chandra, who has clearly been quietly carrying his own immense burden of guilt, admits the ugly truth to his mother. He tells her point blank that his highly paid legal work involves, quote, murdering justice and truth.
Murdering justice and truth. That is a brutal admission.
He knows exactly what he is doing. He contrasts his own daily, soul-crushing compromises with his father's noble, selfless advocacy. He is making a fortune, but he knows he's doing the wrong thing to get it.
And Manki, the woman who just a year ago viciously demanded that her son not drown in his father's poverty, now completely reverses course. She commands her son to abandon his lucrative law practice immediately.
A total 180.
A total 180. She tells him to restart Gaurav. She uses this incredibly beautiful metaphor. She tells him to go run the garden his father planted with such devotion. She wants him to tend to those seeds of justice so his father's soul can finally find peace.
It's such a powerful image, the garden versus the dry stream. So what does this all mean for us, the listeners, sitting here nearly a century after Premchand wrote this?
So what does this all mean? Well, it demands that we turn that incredibly harsh spotlight onto ourselves. When you look at Manki's journey from a harsh pragmatist to a grieving widow seeking moral redemption, you have to ask, how often do you measure your loved ones by metrics that simply do not matter in the grand scheme of things?
We do it all the time.
We really do. How often do you stifle someone's potential or belittle their true calling because you are evaluating their life entirely through the rigid lens of financial safety and social status?
Manki's redemption is born from a very painful realization. Shielding her son from financial hardship was actually keeping him from moral greatness. True wealth isn't the comfort we accumulate and lock away in a private carriage, it's the impact we leave behind in the streets.
That's beautifully said.
Ishwar Chandra died completely penniless, but he left a legacy that moved thousands of people to build a monument in his honor. Krishna Chandra was getting rich, but he was actively losing his soul in the process. The knowledge and the legacy Ishwar Chandra left behind only became truly valuable when Manki finally understood it, and when she possessed the courage to command her son to apply it to serve others.
It is an incredible, profound, emotional arc. We go from a wife bitterly complaining that her husband isn't bringing home the bacon, to a widow literally ordering her son to quit his high-paying job to go run a penniless newspaper just to honor a ghost.
It's wild when you frame it like that.
But it shows that it is never too late to understand someone's true worth, even if they aren't there to see you finally get it.
And that leaves us with a final, lingering thought to carry with you today. If a monument were built for you tomorrow, what would the inscription at the base of the statue actually say?
Oh, that's a chilling question.
Right. Would it proudly list your bank balance and the safety of your career choices? Or would it list the lives you changed and the truth you stood for? And perhaps even more importantly, look closely at the people around you right now. Are you currently being the thorn in the path of someone you love simply because you don't yet understand their true calling?
A heavy, but absolutely necessary question to sit with. And as you mull that over, I just want to humbly remind you one more time, if you gain some new perspective or value out of this deep dive on the Simplified Summary YouTube channel, please take a moment to hit subscribe, drop a like, and share your thoughts on Ishwar Chandra and Manki in the comments section.
We really do read them all.
We want to keep this conversation going with you because, as we've explored today, we so often look for a clear, clean line of success in a bank account. But when we step into the complex, murky landscape of human legacy, we realize that true value is rarely measured in gold. It's measured in the gardens we plant for others.